Welcome back, everyone, to Sunday Wisdom Sessions. We are beginning with our first session for 2026. And usually in the first session, we talk about some of the goals that we want to achieve, some of the qualities that we'd like to work on or improve. And the question to ask ourselves is, this concept of New Year resolutions, this concept of having a look at what the previous year was, what we'd like to do for the year ahead, on what basis do we decide? On what basis do we decide for a stock take, for a step back, for a pause, to check how far we've come and check where we want to go? And isn't it random that we use the calendar, that we use the end of a few digits, a 5 changes into a 6, and this causes us to reflect, contemplate, pause, and think about life? It's the end of one year, it's the beginning of another year. The idea with these sessions is to make this kind of reflection, to make this kind of analysis on our lives a daily occurrence. So instead of doing it just at the end of a year and the beginning of the next, why not choose something shorter, with less of such a large gap? Why not choose the month, the week? Why not choose every day? What have I learned from yesterday? What am I going to do today to make tomorrow better? And this is the idea of bringing study, of bringing wisdom into everyday living. But it requires some dedicated reflection time. It requires a step back from the busyness or business to think about, what are we doing? Where are we going? What lesson did I learn from yesterday? What lesson am I taking forward today and tomorrow? This is it. So when we talk about New Year resolutions, that's all well and good. But let's make it more frequent. Let's make it every day. And this Sunday Wisdom Sessions, it's not enough. It's once a week. And it's an opportunity for us to get inspired, to get a top up, as it were, of knowledge, but then to take that back into our early morning routines, into our individual study and reflection. You can also use the Sunday Wisdom Sessions. Every last portion of the session is dedicated to Q&A. So you can use that to bring up the questions from your week, for the questions from your study. Now, we continue from where we left off in 2025. We've got 3 more qualities to complete a section of the Bhagavad Gita. It comes from chapter 12, and it is the 35 qualities of a seeker of truth, of a devotee of God. And last year, we covered 32 qualities. We have 3 qualities left. Now, when you look at the list, sometimes it's a little bit overwhelming. It's a little bit intimidating. Not all the qualities are easy to conceive. Not all the qualities, a quality like forgiveness, a quality of daksha, being meticulous, not easy to practice. But the idea is, we take the qualities that inspire us, and in perfecting any one of the qualities, because the base is the same, all of the other qualities also lift as you develop the one quality. The quality we're going to study today is being steady-minded. And before we begin, we have a new update And I'm aware that we have approximately 15 countries here. I can recognize already 10 on the screen, but I know we usually have 15 to 20 countries joining us. And for those of you whose first language is not English, we have the opportunity now on Zoom where you can listen to me in English, but have a caption or a subtitle appear on your screen as I speak simultaneously in the language of your choice. So just to give you a briefing on how you can activate it. So if you go to the bottom of your screen in Zoom, either on your phone or on your laptop, there is an option in the toolbar called Show Captions or CC. So you look for the icon called CC. If you don't see it there, it may be under More. So the bottom bar of your screen, you choose Show Captions, CC, and when you click on it, there's a toggle button that asks to activate translation. And once you toggle on, it will ask you, what caption language do you want? And you choose your caption language. It could be Portuguese, it could be French, it could be, depending on your language that you would prefer. You can choose the caption accordingly. So the idea of this work, of these sessions, and our organization called Vedantan is to make this knowledge available to everyone. And fortunately, with technology, it's getting easier. On to the topic today. The topic today, the quality of being steady-minded. In Sanskrit, this quality is called Sthiramatih. Sthiramatih means to be steady-minded. Sthira means steady. Matihi, minded. Is your mind steady? But there's a problem. This is not easy to practice. Can anyone think what the problem is?
The unsteady mind.
The unsteady mind. Okay.
Mainly distractions.
Distractions. Yes. There are many, many distractions. Lots of thoughts. Consistency, says Avinash. Okay.
The nature of our mind is unsteady.
That's it. The nature of the mind itself. And it is not just your mind. It is my mind. It is a saint's mind. It is everybody's mind. The nature of the equipment called the mind is to be unsteady. In the Bhagavad Gita, they give different descriptions to describe this mind, different characteristics. In chapter 6, verse 36, they describe the mind as being very difficult to control. They say that the nature of the mind is restless, asthira, unsteady. It is restless is chanchala, unsteady, asthira. Then we've got turbulent, pramathi. Pramathi means turbulent, violent. You've got strong, balam. And you've got obstinate, stubborn, dritham. And here Arjuna says to Lord Krishna, I consider it as difficult to control as the wind. So he gives a metaphor, a simile, to describe how the mind is like the wind. So just as the wind keeps moving, keeps swirling, is unsteady, this is one aspect of movement. Then the other aspect of the movement, even in a place, it can sometimes move. It's the same thing with the mind. it gives two descriptions of movement. The first one is asthira, unsteady. Our mind moves from thought to thought. Just as the wind moves from place to place, the mind jumps from thought to thought. So right now, you might be here with me in the Sunday Wisdom sessions. And for those of you who follow sport, at the moment, India is playing a cricket match against New Zealand. The mind goes, I wonder what's the score. We just had a city marathon in the city of Mumbai. Your mind might go, I wonder who won the marathon. So your mind goes from here, this classroom, to the cricket field, to the marathon, to perhaps what your son or friend is doing in another country, and it comes back. So the mind moves from place to place. It is unsteady by nature. But chanchalam means restless. So one is you're moving, great movement, great distance between the locations the mind traverses in nanoseconds. But even within a place, the mind is not still. So now you can be in the class, but you are thinking about translated captions, which I spoke about a few minutes earlier. So even within a place, the mind goes up and down. So unsteady is from place to place, lateral movement. But within the place itself, it goes up and down. The comparison in the scriptures. Have you heard of the description monkey mind? Why is the mind like a monkey? So, in one of the lectures, we use this description. It's proverbial. The monkey mind, especially in this part of the world, in India, monkey mind is used colloquially. And when giving a lecture and using the term monkey mind, one of the audience members objected. My mind is not like a monkey. Hang on. We're talking about specific aspects of comparison. What do you think are the aspects of comparison of monkey mind?
Jumping from one to another thought.
Jumping. So if you observe, even in the jungles or definitely in the zoo, the largest enclosure is that where the monkeys are. They need so much of space because they're constantly moving from tree to tree. Many of you, we've met in Ananda Spa, in the forests of Rishikesh, in the mountains. And there they have large monkeys. And the force at which they keep swinging from tree to tree, you can see it. But the other aspect is, even within a place, if they're not swinging, if they're sitting, even within a place, there's movement. Restless. Chanchalam. Same thing with the mind. Our mind is either moving from different thought field to different thought field. So now, suppose we are able to keep our mind in the Sunday wisdom session. The mind can go to the past. The last session we had with Sudhakar on dispossessiveness, that was a masterpiece. This steady-minded, I'm not sure. And next week, I wonder what next week's quality is. So even within Sunday wisdom sessions, you're in a particular place, the mind goes up and down. The other aspect of the mind is, it is turbulent. It is violent. So when a mind latches onto a particular thought, just as wind can be a breeze, but it can be a hurricane. It can cause a shipwreck on sea. It can cause devastation, as we've seen with hurricanes, typhoons. We can see the destruction that it does. Can we see it in our own personal lives? Think about a time where your mind was so turbulent. What was the kind of damage and upending of your life that it did? It could be an impulse. One of the causes of accidents is people arguing in a car. And they get so emotional in a car, they actually turn into a divider. One person, a CEO, was arguing with the spouse, jumped out of the window, hotel window. What must be the turbulence of that mind to just want to escape, do something impulsive? This is the turbulence of the mind. People in a fit of emotion, signing away their wealth, just in that fit of emotion, saying something hurtful, going with an impulse. So the other aspect is it's strong. We see how it moves not just an individual, but it can move an entire nation. And we're seeing this with the generation at the moment. How quickly they're able to mobilize, how quickly they're able to identify with a particular emotion and overturn governments. That is the power of a mob. But is it being thought out, or is it just caught up in the emotion? And a lot of it is, let us cause havoc, let us cause a change, but with no plan afterward. With no thinking, with no idea of what next. It's just change, destroy, upturn. It may be based on thought, but are we caught up by the impulse, or are we thinking about it? Now, we have seen throughout history how one emotion, one impulse, a person gets hooked. The Greeks and the Trojans. The Greeks and the Trojans, they met for peace, to have discussions about a peace treaty. Only problem is that when the Trojans left, they took away the Greek queen with them. And an entire battle was fought because of Helen. Because of getting caught up in that one emotion, two nations that were meant to meet for peace, the Trojan prince got involved with the Greek queen, and look at that. One impulse, one choice, dead bodies everywhere. But the same thing we see with presidents. Presidents who have gotten caught up on one impulse, one desire, lost their presidency. We're seeing it again and again because this is the power of the mind. Whether at the individual level, whether at the level of a group, if we're not careful, we don't know what direction it can take. All we know is the strength of its possible destruction. And the last one is dritham. Dritham means obstinate, stubborn. And just as wind wants to go in a particular direction. If it does not find an opening, it either forces its way through or finds another opening, works its way around. There is no flexibility, there is no adaptability, there's no accommodating. It's obstinate. Now, if this is the nature of the mind, what can we do about it, anyone? It seems a pretty grim picture. If the mind itself is unsteady, how can we be steady-minded? So you're all with me? Arjuna is absolutely correct in the verse that we read out. This mind is difficult to control. It is unsteady by nature. It is restless. It is strong. It is obstinate, turbulent. So what do we do?
Use the intellect.
Use the intellect?
Use your intellect to control it.
Okay, use the intellect. Marius?
I was going to say, try and be in the present moment.
Try and be in the present moment.
Yeah.
Focus.
Focus. Okay.
Consistent habits.
Habits. All right. We are fortunate.
A higher goal.
Develop a higher goal. Okay, great. Let's put that in some structure. When it comes to animals, for instance, we mentioned the monkey. The nature of the monkeys is this movement, is this restlessness. The monkey has no other equipment but the mind. So it cannot regulate the mind. Fortunately, nature has provided animals with a auto-regulation, as it were. So it can't act apart from its nature. There is a story of Lord Hanuman, who was a god in a monkey form. So it is a monkey man, as it were. And Hanuman, being a monkey, had this restless nature so that the mind would go back and forth. And there's a part in the Indian epic of the Ramayana where it says, when Lord Hanuman met his mentor, whom he revered as God, Lord Rama, his mind became steady. His mind became fixed on the Lord, God. And Hanuman, from being a monkey, he changed his nature and his mind was fixed on only Lord Rama. And sometimes people would give him sweets, sometimes people would facilitate him, and he would check. If he was given something, he would hold it to his ear. If it didn't say Rama, Rama, he would give it back. He said, only Rama. So his mind was fixed, it was steady. But even, and this is the nature of the mind, even if it's fixed, even if it's steady for some time, the mind gets distracted. The mind changes. And there is a scene. Lord Rama's wife is kidnapped and taken far, far away across the sea to Lanka, Sri Lanka, and is there in a palace where she's been kidnapped by the Lankan king, Lord Ravana. And Lord Rama sends Hanuman to go and give a message to Sita, to say that, look, your husband is coming. Lord Rama is coming. And Hanuman, apparently, he could fly. So this flying monkey went over the ocean, the sea, landed on a tree where she was seated at the base of, and he looks at her. Her fixation is on Rama. And he sees Sita, this great devotee, but also wife of Lord Rama. And there's a saying that he says at the time, and you really need to understand the background of this being steady or unsteady minded to understand it. And Hanuman says, having seen Sita, he says, she gave my kula back to me. Now, what does Kula mean? She gave my family trait. Kula means family trait. She gave my family trait back to me. What does it mean, anybody? It means the nature of a monkey is not to be fixed, is not to be steady. And when Hanuman met this incredible devotee in Sita, his mind again became like a monkey. What? It became two. Rama, Sita, Rama, Sita, Rama, Sita, Rama, Sita. This is it. So even a person who's highly developed, who's very spiritual, the very fact that they have a mind is a question of more or less steady, unsteady. So even in meditation, the highest spiritual practice, where we are supposed to be concentrating, where we are supposed to be fixed, and only those who are qualified, whose mind is not so unsteady, who is not so restless, can even sit and practice meditation effectively. Even that person has to be careful of the mind slipping. If not from the practice of meditation itself, within the meditation. When am I going to reach self-realization? When am I going to get enlightenment? I'm chanting, no enlightenment. Even there, the mind can slip. Fortunately, a human being is blessed with the intellect. Another equipment which animals do not have. And as a human being, we can use this equipment of the intellect to guide and direct our impulses, our desires, our emotions, all of the nature of the mind. A human being can harness that nature, can use its power, can use its fixation to where it is positive. Now, if we look at the diagram, we see that the human being is made up of body, mind, and intellect. So we covered on the left-hand side the qualities of the mind. So the mind is unsteady, restless, turbulent, strong, obstinate. Now the intellect, and if we start moving or bringing the intellect into our life, we become focused. We become resolute. We don't keep doubting. Like Hanuman, our fixation is there. It's on Lord Rama. Resolute. We become clear in our choices. No more of this indecision, no more grays. We're clear about what we want, what is important, what is not important, what is necessary, what is not necessary, what is relevant, what is irrelevant. Why? Because we are clear with our intellect. We are firm. We're able to be consistent, but also adaptable. So whereas the mind is obstinate and gets caught up on a particular obstacle, on a particular aspect of life that doesn't go the way we planned, the intellect has the ability, the objectivity to say, okay, this has happened. Now, what do we do to get back on track? What do we need to do to accept, acknowledge what's happened and move on to achieving our goal? The question is, how are we developing this intellect? Is it taught in school? Is it taught in university? And even for ourselves, we might have come across just the distinction between mind and intellect only recently through the introduction of Vedanta. And unless our intellect is strong, we will be a victim of our emotions and our impulses, our likes and dislikes. So we want to start harnessing the intellect. What is the starting point if we want to be steady-minded? What is the starting point to use this intellect? And I'm not even saying develop it, the starting point.
Detachment.
Detachment, okay.
Watching your thoughts.
Watching your thoughts, okay. If we want to be steady-minded, the first thing that we can do with the intellect is give the mind a direction. If the mind does not have a direction, it jumps. It's the monkey mind, so it goes from place to place. So if you think about when we are the most distracted, it's when there are these in-between times. There's the saying, an idle mind is the devil's workshop. So if the mind is not given a direction, it's not given an activity, the mind goes all over. It moves to many places. So the first thing we can do is give the mind a productive channel, direction, groove in which it can flow. Now, because you've given this groove, you've given this direction, it doesn't mean that the mind is going to stay there. It's still going to hop. It's still going to move around. But at least the intellect knows where to bring the mind back to. And if the intellect is strong enough, it can keep the mind on the direction that you've given. If the intellect is not strong enough, you may not be able to keep the mind where you want it to be. And if the intellect is really weak, you don't even know you're not in the present. You don't even know that you're not concentrating on what you've decided to concentrate on. Have you found yourself perhaps replying to a message or an email, and a notification comes to another message, and you go and you read that message, and then an email comes up, and then you look at the email and you start reading through the email, and sometimes you never get back to the message that you were replying to. Have you experienced this? Incredible how the mind does this. And sometimes you've written the message, but you haven't sent it. Because just for that moment, somebody's called you and your attention's gone there, it's missed out on here. You don't even remember what you were on in particular. And this is why it is important to set ourselves up for success by giving the intellect all the help that it needs. So firstly, to start developing it. And how? As we mentioned earlier, those dedicated mornings for reflection, for life wisdom, which we're getting through these sessions, but also through your own personal study of the literature or of the lectures in sequence and reflecting on them. This develops our intellect. But secondly, let's remove the distractions. If we have multiple stimuli happening, we're making it more difficult for ourselves because the mind is going to be drawn towards them. The mind is going to be tempted. So let's find a conducive environment for the activity that we're doing. So even now, for this evening's Sunday Wisdom session, is it a quiet place? Here we are in our apartment in Mumbai. We're staying in an apartment block, so I've put the bell off. I've mentioned to those in the household, look, this hour, no disturbances, please. No deliveries. I've called the security. I've told the security, no deliveries, or if there's any parcels, please you receive them. So we're setting ourselves up for no distractions. A conducive environment. What's the next aspect? When is the mind steady? Can you think of a time where you don't have to put effort for your mind to be fixed?
Early hours in the morning.
When you're sleeping.
When you're sleeping, okay. Well, when you're sleeping, there's no mind, all right? So All right, when you're sleeping, very easy to be present.
When you have a crisis to deal with.
When you have a crisis, that can go both ways. For some, you're forced into being present, thinking on your feet. For some, they go into paralysis. So they actually shut down. They get overwhelmed by the decisions and the situation. When are we steady-minded?
When we have a particular task to be completed.
A particular task. Yes. So if there's a deadline, okay. But again, same thing. Stress. Sometimes you want to be on that particular aspect and the mind rebels. But one thing we can all be sure of. When you are in love, you do not have to put in any effort. Your mind is just going by itself to the object, the person of your affections. And you're not putting in any effort for it. The mind is just going. For how long? And that's the problem. The mind changes. But when we experience that kind of emotion, the mind gets onto a particular direction, latches on, and keeps going. It seems effortless. Swami Ramatirtha says, if you look at ants, the ant is moving so much. And he was watching an ant. The ant was moving, very restless, a lot of movement. Until it found a cube, a grain of sugar. And once it found that sugar, it was still enjoying the sweetness. So the same thing with us. One is with our intellect to give the mind a direction. But is that direction fulfilling? Is that direction sweet? Is that direction so satisfying your mind wants to stay there? And what Vedanta tells us is the only direction, is the only aspect in the whole world that can provide that satisfaction, that lasting satisfaction to not make you restless anymore, is your own self within, is your own Godhood, the kingdom of heaven. And if you seek that, the pleasure that you get from that, the mind is satisfied, the mind is fulfilled. The trouble is, we don't know the self, we don't know the kingdom of heaven. So it's the idea of it, and the idea of it should start drawing us there. And that's what we're doing. So similarly, if we don't yet conceive of self, we don't yet conceive of the Godhood within the kingdom of heaven, it's fine. Let us find satisfying work, satisfying service that gives us that fulfillment. And if we direct our mind to that cause, to that mission, to that goal in our life, it's much easier for the mind to be steady. So strong intellect, giving the mind a direction that is inspiring, that is fulfilling, it helps make you steady-minded. The mind wants to be there, but every now and then needs to be redirected because its nature is to wander off. But if it's got a positive direction to come back to, there's less resistance. What else? What else can we do to make this mind steady? Anybody?
Actually, I find that having the translation, it's not translation, but transcription helpful, because it's another piece. It's looking at you and it's also seeing what you're saying. And I find that that focuses me.
Mm-hmm. So one aspect, if we notice, and these, like what Michael's suggesting, is that we can find different aspects to harness our, or amplify our steadiness. So we said removing distractions, or we find sometimes writing helps us focus. Sometimes being on a screen is more distracting because we're so connected, or it's easy to go into other tabs. So finding the activity that helps focus you or removes distractions, great. But if we think about it, the reason why our mind goes to so many places is because we have so many desires. And the more desires that you have, the more pervasive your mind is, in the sense it goes everywhere. So if you have a desire for different holiday destinations, if you have desires for politics, if you have desires for finance, your mind goes to the news. If you have desires for sport, it goes to all the sports. Your mind goes where there are desires. So if we want to remove this roaming mind, what would we need to do?
Control our desires.
Control our desires, reduce our desires. And this is where we can start examining straight away which desires of ours do we want to encourage? Which desires do we actually not need? Because what we're doing is our mind is getting used up in so many channels because we're keeping them open. But if we close them, and with our intellect, we understand this desire is not helpful. Actually, we've been thinking about it, but I don't really want it. Close it. Close it. Close it. Close the desires that are easy to close, that we've just allowed to take up space in our mind because we've not examined it. And upon examining, it's very easy to close that book, to close that page, to close that app, and see the difference. Almost immediately, you are more present. You are more available. You are lighter because you've decluttered your mind. Now, there are so many desires that we may not be able to close. Why? They are too strong. That's fine. Or you might find these are necessary desires. These are things that I do actually want. That's fine. But the unnecessary ones, which Amazon, which all the different online platforms that are advertising to us constantly, ask yourself, do I need it? What will I do with it? Will it add any value to my life? Close, close, close. Lighten, remove. Be free. Be where you want to be. How? Reduce desires. How do we reduce desires is the spiritual path. Because the reduction of desire takes us towards self-realization, towards enlightenment. If we look at this coiled spring diagram, it beautifully explains how the further we are from our true nature, the self, the Godhood within, the more pressure we feel. Now, if you look at the diagram, the one on the right, imagine a coiled spring, 4 feet high. That is its original nature. But if I press the coiled spring down, down, down to the far left diagram, to 1 foot, what do I feel on the top of my palm? Pressure, maximum pressure. But as I release the coiled spring to 2 feet, less pressure. As I release the coiled spring to 3 feet, still less pressure. And if I release the coiled spring to 4 feet, what do I feel on the top of my palm? No pressure. Why is there a difference between these different diagrams? Why is there different pressures felt on the top hand What is the reason?
You can control your desires. You have the ability to.
You have the ability to. It is a case of, if we find our original nature, that is the only time that there is no pressure for pleasure. That pressure for pleasure expresses itself in the form of desire. So the further we are from our original nature, if we don't know where true happiness is, what our true identity is, then we feel maximum pressure. But as soon as we start getting closer and closer to finding out more about the self within, less pressure, less desires. You're not pushed into the world for pleasure. Why? Because you're getting it from within. And when you go a little bit closer to your original nature, even less pressure, more peaceful. And once you achieve self-realization, enlightenment, and you realize your true identity is not this body that ages and stages, it is not this mind that goes through different feelings and emotions, it is not this intellect that refines and defines. You are the eternal self. And when you find that, you realize you lack nothing, you need not desire anything, because you already have it. And when you experience that, there is no pressure for pleasure. So to the extent we understand the truth and we reduce our desires, our mind becomes peaceful, our mind becomes steady. The way we can start reducing desires, the practical way, and this is another angle of Sthiramatih, which is being steady-minded, is to practice being more unselfish. And the reason why we practice being more unselfish is, when we are selfish, there are infinite number of ways to try and satisfy this body, mind, intellect. We are concerned, is the temperature of the room the right temperature? Is the food salty enough? Is the drink giving a kick or not? We've got so many desires pertaining to this body, mind, and intellect. Is the person looking at me correctly? Is that person talking to me in the right tone? There are so many desires if you are selfish. But if you are unselfish, and if we see the diagram, the pyramid diagram, we see all the base level. It's got so many. It's got so many desires if you are selfish. But when you raise the quality of your desires to unselfish, the quantity decreases. And that's the beauty of service. That's the beauty of unselfishness. So the more unselfish you become, you're not so concerned, maybe particularly, about what you're eating. In the sense, like, if it's not got the right salt, it's okay, because as long as your mission is taken care of. And if you keep raising it, the desires become fewer, the quality becomes higher. And you keep raising, your desires become more unselfish, even selfless. You don't have too many personal desires. As long as you're growing, you're improving from every experience, that's enough for you. And then when you go right to the top, you have one desire for self-realization. And that one desire, your mind moves in that area alone. It doesn't move to other areas. Why? Because you have reduced the quantity of your desires by escalating the quality of your desire. So let us practice unselfishness. If you are highly selfish, you will find this quality of mind, and let's see where we are. It's called the 3 conditions of the mind. If you are very selfish, your mind is restless. It is like a cone resting on its apex. So imagine a cone, and you place the cone on its apex. It doesn't stay at rest. It immediately falls. It fluctuates. It's upset. It's agitated. But as you become unselfish, your mind stabilizes. It is more steady. It is imperfect. So it's like a cone resting on its side. But if you just tap the cone, it moves side to side, and then it goes for a while, and it comes to rest until something else happens. Maybe a friend criticizes you. Again, tap. Maybe an illness in the family. Tap. And it comes back to rest. The first one, the selfish mind, is never at rest. The unselfish mind, it has to take some external aspect to agitate the mind. Otherwise, it experiences moments of rest. And the perfect mind is when you move from unselfish towards selfless. When you are not driven by desire. So it doesn't matter what happens in the world, your happiness is not placed on any external person, event, situation, circumstance. Because that person has found happiness within themselves. They've not placed it on the stock market. They've not placed it on any result or outcome. Therefore, their peace of mind is steady. The mind is at rest. So let's summarize. How do we practice this quality of Sthiramatih? First, let us with our intellect give the mind a direction. Second, and I'll put the summary up for you as well. Develop the intellect. And this is the essence of it. So we give the mind a direction. That'll help straight away. But we've got to develop the intellect to have the strength to keep the mind where we want it. And that's your morning study, your daily reflection. The third one is, let us reduce our desires so that the mind is not drawn, the mind is not distracted to every passing advertisement, every passing fancy. And how do we do this? How do we make the mind more steady? Remember the 3 conditions of the mind, the cone diagram. Let us try to be more unselfish in our daily life. This will help the steadiness of our mind. I met a colleague from high school, and we spoke about life because that's the only topic that I talk about. And we were exchanging notes, and he told me, Sudhakar, I miss high school. And I said, why? He said, I miss sitting and studying for a test and my mind just being at the desk and not everywhere. I miss that peace. And I never thought about it like that. He says now, as a middle-aged person, now his mind is just racing. He'll be on his phone and suddenly his mind wants to see the score, and the mind wants to see an investment, and the mind wants to reply to a message, and the mind just wants to do everything. And he misses the ability to just do the activity, one activity at a time. Why? Because we have not developed this quality of being steady-minded. Let us seek higher. Let us seek better. Let us seek deeper and make our mind steady. Are there any questions?
Sudhakar,
Yes.
going through some Swamiji lessons this week, he mentioned the sleep, how the sleep can contribute with a steady mind. And he also mentioned that for some people with let's say, more agitated mind, this kind of people needs more sleeping time. Could you elaborate a little bit on this, please?
Yes. So sleep is the most effective form of rest. So a mind that is highly agitated, it means that the mind is working overtime. So for it to be neutralized, for it to be refreshed, it needs the commensurate deep sleep for that. In fact, for those who are highly disturbed, one of the treatments is induced sleep. Just to get back to a kind of refresh where the mind can reduce the level of agitation, and if possible, if that fog of agitation is not there, the intellect can surface and be available to help the situation. So the more agitated you are, the more the mind is working, the greater rest that it needs. With respect to the importance of sleep, whether you are agitated or stressed or not so stressed, just daily life, rest is an integral part of daily life, because what it does is it refreshes your equipments, not just your mind, your feelings and emotions that need to be reset, but also your thinking. So if you are tired, if you are exhausted, if you have strained, then the same thing with your intellectual ability and your ability to keep your mind steady. So you will find when you are tired, naturally it is more difficult to concentrate. The mind wanders around more. You start speaking, perhaps not coherently. You mix up words. And that's why rest is integral as part of not just 1 month a year or 3 weeks in a year, but as part of your daily life. Do you have moments, minutes, half an hour here and there where you can refresh? Sleep being the most effective. I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so then we meet next week. Next week, we're going to be covering the quality on being endowed with Shraddha. It means faith. So one of the qualities of a seeker of truth is faith. And it's interesting because with the subject Vedanta, it's a philosophy that's scientific. It's very structured, very logical. We encourage questions. We encourage clarifications because every aspect should be and can be explained with reason and logic. So then what is the necessity of faith? So another great topic awaits us. And when we come to the end of our study of the qualities, we thought of doing a synopsis of the first book that is recommended, called The Fall of the Human Intellect by Swami Parthasarathy. So it's the first textbook in the curriculum. And the way we're going to cover it, because many of you have done the e-learning course, have read this book maybe several times, we're going to go into depth. So we're going to use the book as a structure, but we're going to delve into its content and just go a little deeper. So for those of you who don't have any background, it's wonderful. It's a great opportunity to invite friends to the class because they'll be able to follow, get the foundational knowledge. But for those of you with the exposure, with the daily study, we'll also be able to extract some gems from the chronology, from the sequence, and take our foundation deeper. Thank you everyone for joining us. See you next week. Hari Om.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.